So that brings me to the next question because you guys also have some dry batch trimmers as well. You got the Batch One Go, which is the tabletop, and then the Batch One Pro, which I guess is a bit of a bigger investment. And so I'm kind of curious, what's the difference between these, which from my understanding only focus on dry trimming, versus the hybrid trimmers? How do they work differently? Are these like really good, really specialized in dry trimming? What exactly is a batch trimmer? For people that aren't super familiar with it.
For sure. There's a lot of, if you look on the market, different, styles of batch style trimmers. I can name some competitors right now. Green Bros is a strictly dry only trimmer. Triminator, which is made by Mobius, strictly only dry trimmer. The benefits of that, they share their purpose and value in certain, situations or certain commercial settings, or even the indoor guy that's maybe growing in his basement. But I guess I'll start with like the Batch One Go. I mean, the big one for me is noise, and that's the big one usually for a lot of people too, is you're not incorporating a vacuum. It's essentially a tumble method with a saddle, is what we like to call is the blade mechanism that will hug that tumbler as it's spinning. It doesn't necessarily touch the tumbler, but it gets very close enough to where it's taking care of any of that fan leaf or sugar leaf. So noise variability, you're able to trim and it's not loud at all. The Batch One Go is a tabletop trimmer. You're able to get, roughly about 2 to 3 pounds an hour on dry trimming with that unit, with very minimal touch up at the end of the day. It's easy to clean. All the trim and keef basically gets collected right below it in a bin that goes in and out of the trimmer. Ultimately, that's a really hot item for a lot of indoor, tent growers at home. The big brother of that model, the Batch One Pro, we designed for commercial facilities to compete up against the Triminator model. And with us, the innovators that we are, we saw some flaws that we could definitely improve, some bottlenecks that we could solve with that machine, and even maintaining that machine was a big one too. So with the T0 Pro and the Batch One Go, like a lot of our units, the control box, the brain of the unit that does all the power movements on the equipment is easily able to remove, unlike a lot of other units that everything's compact. So you're able to power wash and deep clean the machine at the end of the harvest, which is a big one. Another one with that being able to be attached is being able to fit it through a standard door, which we found like, at a lot of facilities that we would go to, that unit would stay in 1 or 2 rooms just because it was a pain in the ass to move it around. The Batch One Pro, we designed a bigger tumbler to have a more throughput capacity per hour, and a detachable control box on the unit to actually move it, say, from a stationary room designated for trimming to another room that was designated for cleaning. The Pro, your throughput capacity, your sweet spot, I say for loading, is about 8 pounds in. You definitely want to make sure that the water activity in the flower is where it needs to be. Like the characteristics you're looking for is, squishy, almost like a marshmallow on the outside. The sugar leaves are crispy and the stems are not snapping. They're a little bit pliable. They almost want to snap on you. That's what we recommend pretty much for any of our trimmers, regardless if it's a strictly batch style trimmer or single piece flow, like a T4, T6, T2. But those are the batch style trimmers that we have. I find, the biggest difference between like a T4, T2 compared to like a Batch One Pro is really having those versatility of making adjustments on the fly, right? Like if I'm loading in 8 pounds at a time and I'm not maybe dialed in on my dry like I wanted it, there's versatility that I can do and adjustments I can make on a T4 or a T2, whether that's, adjusting the pitch or the angle of the machine, the slope to get the product out quicker, blade on blade contact, CFM, those variables I can do on the fly and get the result that I want. And if I risk it, I'm only risking, a fraction of a pound to dial in that machine versus, now I'm dealt with this product coming out of the dry room. I'm gonna have to load 8 pounds of it in here. I'm gonna push start and play, but I've really got to eye that. And if it's not where it needs to be on the water activity of the flower, you're kind of set with just how tight I can get that saddle going. So for me, when I'm talking with commercial producers, especially, I really try and push hard on having those variables and being able to make those changes on the fly to get the results that you want. And it does get back to, the conversations we had earlier about just how specific different genetics and strains are coming out of dry.